Hello guys, I'm super excited today to talk about Holy Paladins and whether you should play one or not, because quite frankly Holy Paladins are a healer that received the most changes in Shadowlands, and there's a lot of debate about whether they were good or bad. And today I'll talk about my opinions about how Holy Paladins have felt in dungeon environments and raid environments, whether I feel the changes were good or possibly changes that could be implemented to make them even better. So this is, again, disclaimer, this is my opinion. I won't be talking about the best talents that are right now, because quite frankly, even though Shadowlands is going to be released relatively soon, there is a lot of balancing coming out right now. So especially for Covenants that were the best last week might be the worst next week. So expect a lot of things to change, but this video is going to be trying to provide a general outline about whether it's fun to play Holy Paladin in Shadowlands. So let's get started. So the first time we're going to log into Shadowlands Holy Paladin, you might be shocked and you might be like, what is going on here? I can't even cast my Light of Dawn and I'm gonna delete this character, this is the worst. Don't panic. There is a new system or an old system brought back, Holy Power, and you need to generate Holy Power in order to use your spenders. And first of all, how do you generate Holy Power? There's only a couple of ways to generate Holy Power, and one of them is Holy Shock. Again, he has a relatively long cooldown. Another way is using Crusader Strike, which you can see from the tooltip has a mana cost associated with it. Mainly, probably, Blizzard doesn't want to have the same situation where Holy Paladins are the top HPS healers, one of the best DPS healers, and they're using no mana whatsoever, like in Eternal Palace. So I can see why they're doing that. And another way of doing it is using Hammer of Wrath, which is coming back. It has a cooldown on it, and it can only be used on targets below 20% HP and also during your wings. So it's relatively unreliable type of deal, or you need to make sure that you know exactly what you're doing in order to make use of it. So it really kind of boils down to your Holy Shock and Crusader Strike. Now you have to keep in mind that if you do have a beacon target and heal them with your Flash of Light or Holy Light, it's also going to generate Holy Power, but I'm assuming that Blizzard does not want that playstyle to be an intended way of generating Holy Power, or at least it might not be worth doing that because you're missing out on the beacon transfers and things like that. Maybe it's a bonus for you to get if you're forced to heal your beacon target. At least that's my interpretation of what Blizzard is trying to do here. So there's not a lot of ways of doing it, and you're kind of, because of Crusader Strike, you're kind of brought into the melee playstyle. And the first argument about a lot of people that are talking about this is that Holy Paladin is a melee healer. And it's kind of surprising, because if you played BFA in an optimal way, you probably played Glimmer of Light and you probably played a Holy Paladin that was also a melee healer. So keep in mind, it is a relatively similar playstyle to BFA, because if you look at this right now, let's say we use all of our Holy Power and type of deal. Let's say you're a melee type of healer with your Glimmer of Light. Again, Glimmer of Light is a talent, keep this in mind. You're gonna have a similar playstyle to this. So especially if you have Judgment of Light, especially if you have a Judgment Legendary, which also kind of makes Judgment a part of your rotation, which I feel should be based on, but we'll talk about it later on. Your rotation might be similar to this. You go through your target, you might be use Judgment to get your Judgment of Light, your Holy Shock, your Crusader Strike, you might be using Consecration to add additional passive DPS to them. You have 3 Holy Power, you might be using it on World of Glory, which is your spender, a single target spender. Then you go back to your Holy Shock, Crusader Strike. Now you see there's loads of enemies that need AoE healing in front of you. You might be spending it on another spender, which is Light of Dawn, requires 3 Holy Power. Every single spender requires 3 Holy Power. So you go back to Holy Shock, you go back to Judgment, Crusader Strike, and now you might see, I don't know, there's no one to heal whatsoever, and there's a group of enemies here, and you want to use your another DPS spender, and that is Shield of Righteous, which is going to send out or slams enemies in front for a decent amount of damage and increases your armor. It has a relatively short range, so you need to make sure you're close to the enemies, and the animation is relatively, you can see it here, it's like a cone. So if there's no healing needed, you have these 3 spenders. As you can see, the Holy Paladin melee type of build, it is very instant cast type of deal. A lot of your abilities or your spenders are all instant cast, and it kinda is reminiscent of your BFA Holy Paladin Shockadin build as well. Because if you played BFA with the Ineffable Truth, it was really fast. A lot of the instant cast abilities, you barely ever casted your Flash of Light or Holy Light. And it's looking somewhat similar in Shadowlands. And a lot of people have been upset about this because they don't want to be forced to go into melee, which is also somewhat understandable. So I'm trying to answer another big question: is it clunky? And for the first time you're going to play Holy Paladin in Shadowlands, if you're so much used to the BFA, Glimmer of Light, Ineffable Truth and all of that, it will definitely feel clunky. It'll definitely feel like, oh, what is going on here? I hate this. I don't want this type of deal. But I feel over time, and I genuinely believe this, I think over time this playstyle will start to grow on you, and you might even enjoy this, and you'll see a true potential of this playstyle, which kind of happened to me because over the time I was like, okay, this is a lot more interesting than I thought. You have this holy power. Maybe if they added judgment generating holy power at all times, it would be even more interesting. Maybe if they made Seraphim a more baseline ability where instead of using Shield of Righteous to AoE damage when there's no one to heal, instead I'm gonna use Seraphim. That's gonna give me a stat boost for 15 seconds, and I'm DPSing, and then damage comes out like 10 seconds later. I can use my healing abilities that are gonna heal for more because I have Seraphim stat boost available. So there is certain things that I would like to see implemented, and there are 3 things that I want to talk about in terms of trying to get into Blizzard's mind. Glimmer of Light is a talent. They don't want every single player to pick Glimmer of Light. They don't want people who don't like Glimmer of Light to be forced playing Glimmer, which is completely understandable because a lot of people in BFA did not like Glimmer. I personally enjoyed Glimmer immensely. So they want you to have a choice. People who don't pick Glimmer, they want the playstyle to be a lot more interesting. How many people played BFA all their Holy Paladin? In my opinion, that iteration of Holy Paladin is the most boring and appalling version of a healer I've ever played in my life. Holy Shock, and you basically just Holy Shocked and Holy Light or Flash Light the whole time. And it felt really, really boring. And I feel what Blizzard is trying to do is that if you don't pick Glimmer of Light as a Holy Paladin, you're gonna have a more interesting playstyle because you're gonna have Holy Power generators and spenders. And they don't want Holy Paladins to be the best HPS healers, the best DPS healers, and spend no mana whatsoever, and that's why they make Crusader Strike have mana. So if you look at those 3 things, you kind of start to think, okay, I can see where Blizzard is coming from. Have they achieved this in a proper way? Probably not fully. Like I mentioned before, there's a lot of things that could be improved that would make Holy Paladin a lot more interesting. Like I mentioned, the judgment generating holy power, because you have to remember there is a legendary. Judgment has 50% chance to reduce the cost of your next holy power spender by 1, which is actually relatively interesting legendary, but it's 2 oranges. It's 2 orangey. 50% chance can feel really, really bad. I wish this was 100%, and I wish this was baseline. It would, in my opinion, make the Holy Paladin playstyle a lot more interesting. Now, another big, huge discussion. Infusion of Light. Right now, Infusion of Light reduces the cost of your next flash of light. It used to be something even worse. Okay, it used to be something even different. Or increases the healing of your next Holy Light by 30%. So your Holy Light is insanely long cast, but it heals for a lot. But the way that they're tuned right now, it's almost not worth even casting them. So all of a sudden, you're back to this, you Holy Shock, Crusader Strike, spend that type of deal. And again, I don't think Blizzard wants your Infusion of Light to be ignored. So a lot of people, what they suggested is that Infusion of Light, or the spells that are affected by Infusion of Light, which is your Flash of Light and Holy Light, they should generate Holy Power if they're under that effect. All of a sudden, this would make getting Infusion of Light interesting, spending it interesting, and possibly make a ranged healer spec completely viable, because Bestowed Fate right now is generating Holy Power. And all of a sudden you might be like, okay, I'm going to pick Bestowed Fate. I'm going to go with a legendary that is going to give me Infusion of Light, has 1 additional charge, and its effect is increased by 20%. So all of a sudden I'm going to go Bestowed Fate. I don't have to stand in melee. I'm going to be casting my Holy Shocks. I'm going to be casting my Bestowed Fate. I'm going to be casting my Holy Lights. And they're going to be generating Holy Power. And once I have 3 Holy Power, I'm going to be casting World of Glory or Light of Dawn, depending on what you want. So this change could possibly give you a ranged spec and a melee spec, depending on whether it's going to be better for certain bosses or certain dungeons. That could be very, very interesting. At the end of the day, balancing both is insanely hard. If we look at Mistweaver, Monk, Fistweaving, Upwelling build, we can see that balancing those can be very, very hard, and it's almost never equal. But having an option of playing ranged if you like ranged more, or playing melee if you like melee more, could be very, very cool. My personal opinion, I enjoyed the melee playstyle. I enjoyed it immensely, and I think that with a couple of changes, Holy Paladin could be very, very interesting, especially with the fact that Divine Toll is so strong right now. Divine Toll Instantly cast Holy Shock up to 5 targets within 30 yards. And this is an interesting carrying ability, very, very strong, like I mentioned before. I don't want to talk about Covenants too much because I do feel that next week this could be the worst ability because Blizzard nerfs it to the ground, or maybe they buff other ones. This has happened so many times, but right now Divine Toll is like your staple, or it's like one of the most popular picks for Holy Paladin because it provides AoE healing. At 1 minute cooldown, if you pick Glimmer, it's going to put Glimmer on everybody. If you played, or there used to be a legendary that Holy Shock kind of applies bubble on targets if you cast Holy Shock, and it used to affect it didn't have a cap on targets, but now it can only protect 3 targets. So this legendary was directly nerfed because there was a huge synergy. Divine Toll is very strong, and it has this interesting concept where if you have a target that is enemy target and you cast it, it will prioritize casting Holy Shock on enemies. And if you have a friendly target, it's going to prioritize on friendly targets. Now, keep in mind, there is a big issue with it that should be fixed immediately. I hope it will. It does target pets. And all of a sudden, if you spend your Holy Shock with your Glimmer of Light on a pet, it's completely wasted and it feels really, 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 really bad. So Divine Toll should really get this fixed because I feel like it's not intended. So I really enjoyed this playstyle because it is 1 minute. I tested a lot of Covenant abilities. I tested that. Again, Ashen Hollow from Ventier has been buffed. I'm not sure if it's going to be viable or if the numbers are good. But at least my personal opinion, I don't like abilities that are 4 minutes. I prefer something that's going to be 30 seconds, 1 minute cooldown because it is going to be part of my rotation more often. I'm going to feel its impact more often. If I have an ability that's like 4 minutes long, it honestly would feel terrible if I wasted it. So I tend to gravitate towards Covenant abilities that are shorter and they impact my rotation a bit more, but that's my personal opinion. I've tested out Necroroad ability with Vanquisher's Hammer, which felt really, really fun with your Marat's Dying Breath. Again, I did a video fully on this build. If you use Marat's Dying Breath, if you use that Covenant ability, all of a sudden you can have this 1-2-3 playstyle where you're using your Vanquisher's Hammer. Vanquisher's Hammer is going to cost 1 Holy Power, and then after that you generate 3 Holy Power, you cast World of Glory. World of Glory is going to instantly trigger Light of Dawn. Your legendary Marat's Dying Breath, or at least increase the next healing of your Light of the Martyr by a significant amount based on how many people got hit by Light of Dawn, and now you have this 1-2-3 AoE capabilities that translate to single target as well, and your Light of the Martyr is going to transfer with Beacon. And I thought that was really fun, but the numbers might not add up at this given point, but it's possibly a build that might be strong. Again, Marat's Dying Breath legendary by itself is relatively strong in raids, so it might be the go-to in raids, but again, balancing can happen in any given point. So how do I feel about Holy Paladin and Holy Paladin changes overall? I do have to mention that auras that have appeared, again, you have Devotion Aura. I feel they're really, really boring at this point. They do have a global cooldown attached to it. It's always just generally Devotion Aura. There is not a lot of choices here. Devotion Aura is so strong. Party and raid members within 40 yards are bolstered by their devotion, reducing damage taken by 3%. So basically everyone in a group, in a raid group or a party group, are going to take 3% less damage. That is insanely good, and that's going to cement at least a paladin spot in raid situations no matter what. Now you also have to think about that Aura Mastery to some extent has been nerfed because Devotion Aura using Aura Mastery, damage reduction is increased to 15% for 8 seconds. It used to be 20%, but because Devotion Aura baseline ability has been buffed, it's still looking very strong. But I still feel that because of things like Devotion Aura that are provided by all of the Paladin specs, but Holy Paladin's Aura Mastery, the damage reduction that they provide, which is provided by very few healers in Shadowlands at the moment, the passive damage that they can deal in the melee spec is always going to guarantee at least 1 Holy Paladin spot in raids. We'll have to see how they're going to go, but I feel their utility is still very, very strong. And in Mythic Plus dungeons, from what I've seen and things like that, Holy Paladin damage is very strong because they do have options of dealing damage or healing. And when you consider other healers, from what I've seen, a lot of the times the healer DPS is a lot lower than it used to be in BFA. It's a lot harder for a healer to catch up to tank's damage if you're playing with good players who know exactly what they're doing. Holy Paladin's damage in Mythic Plus dungeons is relatively good. It's one of the best out there. Again, it's all based on the balancing. But is the niche of Holy Paladin being a Mythic Plus healer the best DPS Mythic Plus healer, is that going to persist in Shadowlands? It's kind of looking like it to some extent. Divine Toll is a big part of that because Divine Toll is very strong right now. So it's possible that it's going to be exactly the same like in BFA. The reason to invite Holy Paladins are going to be very similar to the reasons that existed in BFA, and who knows. I still feel Holy Paladin is a relatively fun healer. It is a shock to play it for the first time. You can get used to it, you can have a lot of fun. I feel it has a lot of potential, especially with a couple of changes made to Infusion of Light, maybe Judgment, and all of the sudden I am strongly considering of playing a Holy Paladin in Shadowlands. I'm probably going to get 3 characters at the start of the Shadowlands launch, and I'm strongly considering of including Holy Paladin in one of those. And again, let me know how you feel about this. The doom and gloomers, they're saying the Holy Paladins are the worst thing ever, that I'm never gonna play it, I'm gonna delete my game. I don't think it's that bad, but that's just my opinion. Let me know how you feel about Holy Paladin Shadowlands. Let me know if you played it for a bit longer and you got used to the playstyle, or if you just downright hate it. Let me know, guys, and I'll see you in my next guide.